Here's the problem with most Bronco builds. They only show you what you're going to gain. Nobody talks about what you're going to give up. That's how people wind up with great looking Broncos, but on the highway they wander, the steering feels weird, and 6 months later, you're fixing shit you didn't plan for. And that's why people wind up feeling confused, frustrated, and building the same truck twice. Today I'm going to help you with that. Hi, I'm John and this is Project Kehm. No sponsors, no codes, nothing for free, just real world decisions from a guy that actually drives his Bronco. I get this question constantly. What's the best setup if I actually drive my Bronco? And what surprises me is how quickly people jump to extremes, like if you're not on 37s, beadlocks, or mod lists longer than your receipt, you're doing it wrong. That's not true. There is no one right build. What there are is trade-offs. So today it's not hype, we're talking trade-offs. What you gain, what you give up, and what actually matters. And if you watch my previous videos, this isn't a repeat. This is me connecting the dots so you don't learn the hard way. This isn't a rock crawler video. This isn't Instagram advice. This is for people that daily drive their Bronco and want it to be capable when the pavement ends. Tires are the first mod most people look at. They change the look instantly, they change the clearance instantly, and they're easy to justify. But tire size alone isn't the only decision. Tread matters too. All-terrains, mud terrains, hybrids, they all handle differently on the road. And here's the part most people miss. Tires don't just change traction, they change how the whole truck feels. Heavier tires take more effort to turn, stop, and control, and that matters more than most people think. 33s aren't weak. They have the best road manners, light steering, less stress on suspension and steering, and they're the cheapest option long term. What you give up is ground clearance and breakover on tougher trails. 35s are where most people start to feel capable without feeling compromised. You get real clearance, better trail confidence, and it still drives like a normal vehicle. What you give up? A little MPG, slightly heavier steering, and higher tire cost. For most owners, this is the sweet spot. Now 37s, they aren't scary, they aren't magic either. They add clearance and confidence, but they also add weight and leverage. You gain maximum clearance, confidence on obstacles, and yeah, the look. And what you give up is heavier steering, more load on tie rods in the rack, and less margin if nothing else changes. 37s don't break Broncos. Pretending nothing else needs to change? That's what breaks Broncos. After tires, wheels are the next quiet mistake. Most people pick wheels based on looks and not on how they affect steering. But wheel offset, which is basically how far your wheels sit in or out, is going to affect how your Bronco feels every single mile. People go wider for clearance, an aggressive stance, and better fitment. But what that's going to cost you is heavier steering, more stress on your steering parts, and faster wear over time. Scrub radius, well, that's just a fancy way of saying that the tire's fighting your steering more than it used to. It's not going to show up on day one, it's going to show up months later when the honeymoon's over. Wheel diameter is the first part people really don't think about. Bigger wheels don't actually give you more clearance, they just shrink the tire sidewall. A 17-inch wheel gives you more sidewall, which means better ride quality, more flex off-road, and more protection when you hit potholes or rocks. 18s and 20s can look good, but you'll give up comfort and impact protection to get that look. For people who actually drive their Broncos off pavement, smaller wheels usually work better. Wheel width matters more than people realize too. Wider wheels stretch the tire out. That looks aggressive, but it also exposes the sidewall and makes the tire less forgiving. An 8.5-inch wheel keeps the tire more supported and usually rides better. A 9 or a 9.5-inch wheel gives you a wider stance, but it can make steering heavier and increase stress on suspension and steering parts. For daily driven Broncos, the narrow wheels tend to stay happier long term. And when you combine wheel width with offset, that's where people accidentally stack problems. A wide wheel with an aggressive offset adds leverage. More leverage means heavier steering, more wear over time, and less margin if something's already working hard. None of this shows up right away, but you'll feel it later. As far as wheel material, cast versus forged, I've already covered that in detail in another video. Short version, strength and weight matters, but they don't fix bad sizing choices. Lift height gets all the attention because it's the only number people know. But suspension's more about how tall the truck sits. A good suspension does three things: controls movement, maintains alignment, and keeps angles reasonable. A quality 2 to 3 inch lift gives your tires better clearance, gives you better approach angles, and keeps the CVs and steerings in a healthy range. And for those of you who don't know what CVs are, that's the axles that allow your wheels to turn and move up and down. Once you go higher, you're not just lifting the truck, you're changing how every joint works. Lift height is really just how much you're changing angles. The higher you go, the steeper your CVs, tie rods, and control arms get. Steeper angles mean parts are working harder, even if nothing breaks right away. Travel is how much the suspension can move up and down. More travel sounds good, but only if it's controlled. Cheap lift height without proper control can make the truck feel floaty, harsh, or unpredictable on the road. That's why suspension quality matters more than just lift height. When people say geometry, they're just talking about keeping everything straight as the suspension moves. Steering, axles, and control arms are all designed to work in a certain range. When you push past that range, the truck still drives, but parts wear faster and steering starts to feel off. That's why moderate lifts tend to live longer. You get clearance and capability without forcing every part to work harder all the time. Once you go higher, you're not wrong, you just need to support the system. Once tires, wheels, and suspension change, the rest of the truck feels it, whether you plan for it or not. This is where people either build smart or they build twice, because once something breaks, the internet loves to say the part was weak. And yeah, sometimes parts fail, but most of the time it's not because the part was weak. It's because leverage increased, angles changed, or something quietly gets harder. Tie rods, CVs, control arms, they don't normally fail out of nowhere. They typically fail when the system around them changes. In some parts, they don't have a lot of margin to begin with. You don't automatically need upgraded tie rods, CVs, or a heavy-duty rack. They only become necessary when your usage demands it. If you daily drive sand, dirt, and trails, you can stay reliable longer than the internet tells you. There's another category of mods that people mix into this: performance and feel mods. Pedal commander, intake, exhaust. They don't change geometry, they don't reduce leverage, they don't make the steering any happier. They just change the way the truck feels, and that's fine. Just don't confuse enhancements with solutions. There's a whole separate conversation about performance mods. What helps? What's placebo? What's just noise? That's its own video. Today it's about making sure the foundation makes sense before you stack anything else on top of it. Here's the question you need to ask yourself that will solve most of this. What problem am I actually trying to fix? If it's clearance, then tires and a lift will matter. If it's how the steering feels, then wheels and offset matter. And if it's reliability, suspension and proper steering geometry matter. Problems start when people chase the look and ignore the trade-off. If you're building a Bronco right now, drop a comment and let me know how you actually drive it. That's how I decide what to break down next and what's worth skipping. And if you like this straight talk approach, stick around.